Coming up on Mountain News at 6.
Shot to death outside his home.
He just walked in, calm. Michelle, I shot Rodney.
For the first time, we'll hear from a Martin County shooting victim's wife and how she is coping this holiday season.
My kids have to go this Christmas and not have their dad.
Doubling down, Representative Dan Johnson refuses to resign. And the buck stopped here. A Pike County man says a deer did thousands of dollars worth of damage to his pool.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 6.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. While many of us will spend Christmas celebrating, a Martin County family is still trying to figure out how to deal with their loss. Police believe one of Rodney Cockeye Stepp's friends shot him in his driveway. Pictured here, him, his wife, and son. In an emotional interview today, WYMT's Marianne Fletcher talked to his wife, and she walked us through the moments following his death. Standing his ground as demands grow for Republican Representative Dan Johnson to resign. He says the claim he sexually assaulted a 17-year-old holds no weight. Hillary Thornton has more on Johnson's message to those opposing him. Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. A devastating plane crash leaves people in a small town grieving. The crash claimed 4 lives. Everyone involved lived in or near Somerset. This is a picture of that wreckage in Barron County. WKYT flew over the scene earlier today. The plane crashed near Glasgow a little before 3:30 Eastern Time yesterday afternoon. The group in the plane left from a hunting trip in western Tennessee. Federal investigators say their flight was headed to the Lake Cumberland Regional Airport in Somerset, but they crashed about 100 miles away in Barron County. WYMT's Phil Pendleton talked to people in their hometown. Later this week, the Bell County Sheriff's Department will pay tribute to their canine killed in the line of duty. A car hit Kane December 3rd while he helped find drugs during a traffic stop. Thursday, they will hold a memorial service at Brooks Durham Funeral Home in Pineville. Coming up, making the old new again, how one woman hopes her vision gives a theater a new chapter. But first, a commotion outside led to a big surprise for one Pike County man that might cost him thousands of dollars.
High temperatures will struggle to reach the upper 30s. We'll talk about all those details coming up.
An unwelcome guest hits towns across Kentucky.
Oh my God!
A day's scars some could not imagine would ever heal.
It chokes you up. You don't know where your family is. It chokes you. But we got through it.
5 years later, the memories are vivid, the pictures still surreal.
It was just heart-wrenching. I mean, we're a poor community.
For a time, we wondered how could these towns ever find the strength to rebuild? But a bell tower is one symbol of how time can heal wounds. Tonight, how our mountain heritage helped so many triumph over tragedy. Good evening, everyone. I'm Steve Hensley.
And I'm Neil Middleton. The scars of this day 5 years ago still linger.
Tornadoes ripped through eastern Kentucky. Anything in their paths were flattened.
In the Bible it says, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted." The time for mourning has passed. Now it's time to look ahead.
We have a team of reporters covering the hardest hit areas. They have stories on how the storms could not rip away our faith. We begin with former WYMT weatherman Brandon Robinson. He's live in West Liberty. Brandon?
And Angela Reiger now joining me. Ange, I was here about 5 years ago, almost to the day. I was here 5 years ago, about a week later, and the devastation that I saw here was heartbreaking. I went to school at Morehead State, back in the day, and I traveled through here all the time, and I couldn't believe my eyes when I came across the hill and just saw the devastation downtown. But a lot of things have changed since then.
Well, and I think that's what a lot of people want to focus on. I know the mayor does. When I talked with him, we talked about his memories of March 2nd, but also the revival of this community.
Thank you very much. Well, certainly where Angela is in West Liberty, the progress is really astonishing.
It really is. Just look at this video taken in the days following that historic tornado before the real cleanup and rebuilding began. Now, this is what the town looked like. It's just the shell of itself. As far as you can see, nothing but destruction.
But now look at this. This is video we shot just 2 weeks ago from the air. You can literally not even tell an EF3 tornado wiped out almost everything in town 5 years ago. 24 people died in the March 2nd tornado outbreak in Kentucky.
7 people died in that twister in Laurel County. 6 lost their lives in Morgan County, and there were 2 deaths each in Johnson and Lawrence County. And 1 death was attributed to the storms in Pulaski County.
Now, things began really unraveling for Eric C. Kahn about 2 years ago. The scheme he was involved in took place between 2006 and 2016, costing the federal government more than $500 million. A federal grand jury indicted Kahn in April of 2016. He pleaded guilty in March of this year, and then he took off on June 2nd. In July, a judge still sentenced him to 12 years in prison. Then he was caught Saturday, of course, in Honduras. From Google Maps, we calculated Kahn traveled at least 7,000 miles. It started in Lexington. Pictures surfaced of him in New Mexico shortly after his escape. He then went south through Guatemala, and as we learned today, 6 months to the day, it all ended while eating pizza in La Ceiba, Honduras. Tanner, what have you learned about where Kahn is going to be held and what happens next?
I'll eat $100 worth of seafood.
We are not for sure yet if there is any sort of a detention facility that they are taking him to. In fact, I asked an official with the FBI earlier if they were going to be taking him to the Fayette County Detention Center, and he said that he couldn't answer that at this point. And we also inquired about a possible court date, and that same FBI official told me at this point he could not release anything, but he did say that typically those court dates happen the day after. So it's unconfirmed, but certainly very possible that we will see Eric C. Kahn facing a judge tomorrow in federal court in Lexington.
Tanner, I'm curious, what's been the most interesting part of covering this case for years, really?
It's hard for me to really pin down what would be the most interesting part. I think probably the most overlooked part, and you heard in that previous story a lot of people talking about, is just the plight and what so many of his former clients have had to go through. You know, it's common. You hear a lot people joke about this and they make light of it because it's a case that has had so many twists and turns and so many bizarre elements to it that often, you know, we tend to find ourselves in the trap of making light of it. But I don't think we should ever overlook the damage that has been caused to these hundreds of clients in eastern Kentucky and in West Virginia who many of them lost their only source of income. You know, I've sat at the dinner tables with them before and they've told me they didn't know how they were going to get their next meal because their only source of income, their disability benefits, were now gone because Eric Kahn represented them and the SSA, suspended their benefits when all of this happened. So I think that's probably the most important thing we need to keep in mind in all of this is the real victims of this whole saga.
Yeah, well said. Tanner, thank you very much for joining us tonight. If you would like to learn more about the Kahn case, just head over to WYMT.com. Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. Unfortunately, we have a sad start to our eclipse coverage tonight as we continue to follow breaking developments in a deadly Leslie County crash. Kentucky State Police tell us 2 women were hit by a car while they were watching the eclipse this afternoon in Hyden. One of them died. The other was injured and flown from the scene. We do have some aerial video from a short time ago. Now you can see the car that hit the woman on its side. To the right is Primary Care Center, where we are told the 2 women worked. Police tell us Mackenzie Page Hayes died at the scene. The driver of the car was also flown to Holston Valley Medical Center. Police say it is too early to tell if the driver will face charges. Now, we do have WYMT's Cassidy Stricklet at the scene. We hope to hear from her a little bit later in the newscast. Well, today's eclipse was history in the making. It's been 99 years since the last total eclipse went coast to coast across the United States. One small western Kentucky town, Hopkinsville, was one of the best places to see the event. This is drone video courtesy of KET, shot by FAA certified remote pilot Justin Allen. Thousands of people from around the world flocked to Hopkinsville to have one stellar view of the great American eclipse. We begin our team coverage with WYMT's Brandon Robinson and Allison Rogers live from Eclipseville.
Steve, it really was a beautiful sight to see, one for the history books, and people have been planning for this for a long time. Allison talked to somebody that had been planning for the last 5 years.
Recharging Eastern Kentucky's economy. Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. Officials say construction is expected to begin on the facility in mid-2018. Now, the company will also first place its headquarters in Lexington, providing another 110 jobs there. This comes after a couple other announcements this year already in Pike County. In March, App Harvest announced plans to build a 2 million square foot greenhouse. It's expected to provide around 130 jobs. Then in October, Silverliner signed an agreement to build a facility in the Kentucky Enterprise Industrial Park. Officials say that could eventually bring an additional 300 jobs in 5 years. In total, that's more than 1,300 jobs promised in Pike County alone in the past 9 months. Among the hundreds of people at today's announcement were some who know firsthand about the region's job losses. WYMT's Krista Frost talked with them about what these new opportunities will mean. She's in the newsroom to continue our team coverage. Krista?
In addition to providing jobs in Kentucky, the company will relocate about 40 families already working for Interblue from out west to Kentucky to help get things started here.
Krista, all these jobs announced this year will still not replace the numbers lost in the coal industry, right?
That's true. State officials say there were more than 14,000 coal jobs in eastern Kentucky in the third quarter of 2011. That number is now less than 4,000. But officials hope this project will put some laid-off miners back to work, and that could also lead to jobs at supplier plants. Steve.
All right, Krista, thank you. Officials with Shaping Our Appalachian Region, or SOAR, released impressive numbers from projects they've been involved with all across the eastern half of Kentucky in 2017. In total, more than 4,100 jobs have been announced and more than $1.7 billion in investments. Some of the bigger ones include Brady Industries in northeastern Kentucky and Boyd and Greenup counties, a $1.3 billion investment there, and more than 1,500 jobs. Centure added 800 jobs between Williamsburg and Anvil. Then Teleworks USA added more than 630 jobs, an economic impact of more than $15 million. A new energy revolution shaping the entire region. Officials hope these new companies will erase county lines, providing much-needed jobs to all of eastern Kentucky. WYMT's Corey McCauley breaks down how officials in Pikeville plan to create a new future. And now to our latest web poll. We want to know if you believe Interblue could be the Toyota of eastern Kentucky. Several officials alluded to that today in our live coverage. You can vote right now on WYMT.com. We'll have the final results Monday on First at 4.
The other way, slams it in off the right baseline. Fox right side, drives into the paint, leans in, flips it up, got it, foul Arkansas, 3-point play opportunity. Minutes to play, Briscoe in the lane, drives to the rim, left-hand runner, good, he floated it high. Fox is down the lane.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Steve Hensley. The Big Blue excitement is alive and well across Kentucky and down in Memphis, Tennessee. The Cats do not play until tomorrow night, but our coverage begins right now. Let's send it to Josh McKinney and Angela Reiger. They are live outside the FedEx Forum. Guys?
That's right, Steve. Covering the Cats in the Sweet 16 in downtown Memphis. Good evening from the center of blues and rock and roll. I'm Josh McKinney.
And I'm Angela Reiger.
And Angela, we got here last night. A lot of excitement already building for the game tomorrow with UCLA. But today, things really got going in gear.
Back here in the mountains, an unlikely character is using his people skills to get others ready for the big game tomorrow. Finney the Golden Doodle is a huge Wildcats fan. He and his owner visited Riverview Healthcare Center in Prestonsburg today. WYMT's Sarah Anderson shares this story of the cat's best friend. Coming up, firefighters rush to rescue a dog, likely saving its life. And later, we'll show you why some Letcher County students were singing today. With Thanksgiving just hours away, people are hitting the road for their holiday destinations. One of the busiest highways in our area is always I-75. WYMT's Cassidy Stricklet joins us now live from there with more on-road conditions and projections for this year's travel. Cass?
Hey Steve, well I told you at 4, but I'm going to tell you again because these numbers are just insane. So this year AAA estimates that more than 50 million people will be traveling this Thanksgiving, and that is the highest projection that they have had in more than 10 years. Now I-75 is right behind me. It's one of the busiest roads in our region. Today I talked with both police and drivers about the conditions that they saw while out and about. One of the big things that Deputy Broughton talked about today was, of course, the use of cell phones. He says if a deputy sees you texting and driving, they can pull you over and issue you a citation. So it's just best to keep it put away.
Well, Cassidy, I haven't heard of any crashes so far today on 75. What's it like out there right now?
I-75 is running smooth as can be where we're at. It has picked up a little bit, and I will say the southbound lanes seem to be seeing a little more traffic than the northbound lanes. So if anyone's heading out anytime soon, just keep that in mind. And I have to say, Steve, I hope that everyone has safe travels this year. But for now, live in Laurel County, Cassidy Stricklet, WYMT Mountain News.
More folks may be headed to warmer destinations. Cassidy, thank you.
Coming up on Mountain News at 6.
Found passed out in a Walmart parking lot.
When officers got on scene, the child, the 3-year-old child in the car was shivering.
A mother faces charges, her child at the center of the investigation.
It's scary, you know, it scares you for like other children, you know, you don't want children to be in that position.
Day 4 of testimony in a Letcher County murder trial. Security pictures show the moments before a deadly stabbing.
After a warm Monday, we're looking at snow chances and cold temperatures for Tuesday. All those details are coming up.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 6.
Putting a child in danger. Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. 2 Pike County women are facing multiple charges after police say they found one woman in the Walmart parking lot passed out with a child in the car and another woman inside Walmart under the influence with a 6-year-old. WYMT's Corey McCauley spoke to police who say they are thankful they got to the children before things got worse.
Coming up on Mountain News at 6.
An overnight shooting in Knox County lands one man behind bars. A church bus crash could have ended much worse. We have the 911 call for help.
There's a bad wreck out here on Sally Branch, sir. It's a church bus full of kids.
Temperatures will be near 80 degrees tomorrow and a few chances for strong storms.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 6.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Steve Hensley. We begin tonight with some breaking news out of Laurel County. A fatal crash has Highway 472 closed at this hour. Deputies tell us someone crashed along the road around 5 o'clock this evening. Police say one person died. So far, they have not released the name of the victim. We will, of course, continue to bring you the latest on WYMT.com and have an update tonight at 11. Shot inside his own home. An overnight shooting in Knox County sent one man to the hospital and another to jail, but police are still trying to figure out the motive. WYMT's Caleb Noe has the latest. Authorities tell us the victim, Harlan Smith, and the suspect, Eddie Smith, are not related. Some big news possibly tonight on the employment front. A Georgia-based company may reopen mines in Harlan County. Coal producer Alpha Natural Resources sold its mining assets in Harlan County to JRL Coal. The company plans to reopen mines that were idled in 2012. Alpha, which emerged from Chapter 11 bankruptcy last year, also sold its idled Enterprise mining operations in Knott and Letcher counties. Terms of the sale were not disclosed. It could have been worse. That's the thought of some in Laurel County tonight. Last night, a church bus crash injured a dozen children. Deputies say the pastor of Lick Fork Missionary Baptist who was driving lost control. WYMT's Cassidy Strickland is in the newsroom with the call for help. Cassidy?
Steve, 15 people were inside of that church bus when it crashed. Deputies say the pastor of the church, Charles Kirby, was driving but was not injured. Now, that was not the case for 12 juveniles who were taken to the hospital for injuries. A 12-year-old girl had injuries so severe she was flown to UK Medical Center. Deputies say anytime children are involved in a crash, it's a tense moment for first responders.
Straight ahead, some inmates say it's either jail or a grave if abusers do not clean up their acts.
You will die from them. I mean, it's like bam, bam. I mean, you can't even, and it ain't no stopping it.
And later, what this warm weather could mean for area farmers.
A few strong storms return to the region tomorrow night after a record warm Friday.
A bipartisan call tonight for Bullitt County State Representative Dan Johnson's immediate resignation. This is in the wake of another sexual misconduct allegation. The Kentucky Center for Investigative Reporting claims a woman came to them saying Representative Johnson sexually assaulted her when she was just 17. Now, you might remember Johnson made headlines during the 2016 campaign when some of his social media posts included racially insensitive pictures. Republican Party of Kentucky Chairman Mac Brown released a statement today saying, quote, following today's extensively sourced and documented story from the Kentucky Center for Investigative Reporting, we once again find ourselves in a position where we must call for him to resign, this time from the Kentucky General Assembly. Corbin want to find some Grinches who stole some expensive and rare Christmas decorations. Nearly $4,000 worth of Christmas decorations were taken from several places throughout Corbin. Some of the displays have since been replaced, but one location without its Merry Christmas sign is a Christmas tree lot that was raising money for a church ministry. The decorations are owned by Celebration Lighting, and the manager says they are easily recognizable.
So they have a full display of a nice Merry Christmas and 2 sets of carolers that will be easily seen from quite a far distance because our products are very, very bright.
Celebration Lighting is offering a $1,000 reward for information in the case. If you know something, call the City of Corbin Police Department. Teamwork and hard labor. Just ahead, we'll show you how a group of volunteers joined forces to make this winter a little easier on some of our furry friends. Then later, how some employees of a health clinic made Christmas special for some local kids.
Snow will impact the morning commute for some locations. We'll have the details on that coming up.